Y'all, one of the hardest things about being diagnosed autistic is that people are much less likely to understand you if you say that you are autistic than they would if you just said you were weird or they thought that you were weird. I've been perceived as weird my whole life, and granted, I am, but I think a large part of my different mannerisms or ways of thinking is due to me being autistic, which I didn't learn till later on, unfortunately. But the fact that I was weird was just something that people accepted and they understood. They weren't nice about it, obviously. They still judged me. I've been bullied for a large portion of my life. I don't really get bullied as much anymore because I've learned to fit in better. But for a large portion of my life, I was subjected to a lot of bullying. They weren't nice about it, but they understood it. They were willing to say, oh, that person is weird and that's why they're acting this way or thinking this way. But then when I get diagnosed with autism and I tell people about it, they have a much more difficult time accepting that and believing that, because being weird is observable. They can observe your weirdness and they can think in their minds, hey, that is different from the norms of society, therefore weird. But encapsulating the idea of autism in one's mind is a much harder thing to do, considering it's a condition that varies a lot depending on the individual. So people can't just observe another person and understand the difference between weird and, oh, that's autism. They are doing that because they're autistic, because especially with all of the stereotypes, there's so many stereotypes out there about what it means to be truly autistic. So if you said, I'm autistic, people might think, no, they don't fit these certain stereotypes that I have. Okay, they probably wouldn't think that they're stereotypes. They'd probably see it as what they are, But to a lot of autistic people, they are seen as stereotypes. But maybe, okay, anyways. What I'm saying is that if they cannot observe the traits that they have in their mind for people who are autistic, they will be they will be much less likely to be able to comprehend that and identify me as that. Obviously, I don't want to be identified as just autistic. It's a part of my identity, but what I mean is that they will probably not be so quick to accept the idea that I'm autistic than just weird. And I think that way of thinking contributes a lot to why a lot of people, especially those who don't meet the general stereotypes of autistic people, get late diagnosed, or even sometimes not diagnosed at all, because people just see them as quirky or weird, but will not accept them as autistic as freely. Now, I probably sound like a broken record here, but I'm just trying to both explain my thought and understand my thought myself, because I just had this random thought and I just wanted to share it. I think if people were more tolerant of the ways in which autism can vary among individuals, there would be less people getting diagnosed later in life or not diagnosed at all. Which I know is easier said than done because, well, there's a lot of autistic people, especially a lot of the ones I watch online. And I guess now I have been trying to talk about time and time again being more accepting of the way autism presents in each autistic person, and how if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. How none of us are going to display the exact same traits as each other. Yet, those stereotypes and this stereotypical and generalized way of treating autistic people still exist and is very much prevalent in our society today. But I guess even despite that, I think it's still good to talk about it. I really do, because the more people talk about an issue, the more people will be aware of it. So I just think it's really important to still continue to talk about issues like this, and hopefully that will encourage more people to understand it and might even encourage them to speak about it too. So, yeah, a short video. I just wanted to talk about this random thought that I had because I just think that it needs to be said for some reason. So, yeah, bye-bye.